So we're going to be dividing, and this time we're going to be dividing by multiples of 10. So for example, 10, 100, and 1,000. So you can see here we've got three problems that we're going to work through. Probably an interesting addition to make to what I've already written down is maybe 75 divided by 1. And we'll see what the answers are to each of these questions, and you might be able to see a pattern. So 75 divided by 1, well, that's just 75. This one here, though, 75 divided by 10 is 7.5. This one here, 75 divided by 100 is 0.75. And this one here, dividing it by 1,000 is 0.075. Okay, now if I just arrange these answers so that the decimal points are in line, you might be able to see something quite interesting in the answers. And even further than that, if I move these across a little bit more, so if I move them to here, for example, and I put in the decimal point for 75, this first one, convert basically this whole number to a decimal, and then just align these decimal points up again, you might see something a little bit interesting in what's happening, because you might be able to notice that the 75, when I multiplied by 10, it moved over, so that these numbers, these digits, they moved across towards the right and became 7.5, right? And when I multiplied by 100, they were here, they moved across by 1, 2 spaces. And when I divided by 1,000, it moved across 1, 2, 3 places. So you might notice then that when I multiply by 1, there's no zeros, so nothing happened to it. It stayed exactly where it is. When I multiplied by 10, it moved 1 space, and there's 1 0. When I divided by 100, there's 2 zeros, and I had to move it to the right 2 spaces. And when I divided it by 1,000, well, there's 3 zeros in 1,000, so I moved it over 1, 2, 3 spaces. That's kind of like the easiest way to think of it, because you're just moving the numbers to the right by however many zeros there are in the divisor. Okay, so for example, if I was to take a different kind of number, like, I don't know, 86, and I was to divide it by 100, well, 86, and I would divide that, I would make that move 2 spaces to the right. So decimal point goes here, okay, and I'm going to move 86 2 spaces, because there's a 0 and another 0. There's 2 zeros. So I'm going to move 86 2 spaces to the right. So let me just make it clear that there are 2 spaces here, decimal point. Okay, so let me just do that. I'm going to take this 86 and I move everything over 2 spaces. 1, 2. And so 86 divided by 100, well, the answer is, according to this, 0.86. If I was to do a different one, let's say 420 divided by 10. Okay, so let's get 420. I put a decimal point in. Okay, and here are the spaces. Okay, and I'm dividing by 10, so really these digits all get moved by 1 decimal place, or 1 place value, if you like, to the right. Everything moves to the right, 1 space. And there we go. The answer would be 42. So that's one way you can do these kinds of problems. There is another way, and it's a bit more old school, but it works just as well, and it involves moving the decimal point. So again, if I have, let's start with here, 75, right? So 75, you have to convert it to a decimal, so it'll be 75.0. And all you do now is divide by 10, the decimal point is going to move, but it moves to the left, so 7.5, which is what we have here. If I have 75, decimal point goes here, divided by 100, so 2 zeros means this moves twice to the right. So it becomes 0.75, which is what we had here. And 75, decimal point, we're going to go 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. Hold that space with the 0, put the decimal point there, and again you can see we ended up with the same answer here, 0.075. And that's how you can do it as well. And that's how you can divide by multiples of 10.